memento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Memento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Memento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack. Memento, buying the block back.
just realized I have to unmute myself on social media. I'm excited about who my guests are today, and I hope that you are too. My guests today, I gotta tell you, one of them I've been following for as long as I've been on social media, probably, and the other one reached out to me. And when people reach out to me in my DMs, if you're like most people, you don't really pay much attention. But I took the time to scan this particular DM, and I'm glad that I did, because one of my guests is a young lady, college student, Chico State.
Yes, yeah.
Chico State, Miss D sings. And y'all, she really does sing. She's got a beautiful voice. She's got an awesome personality. And when we take a break, at both breaks today, you are going to get to experience her music. So when we take our first break, the first song that you'll hear will be from her. And I will let her highlight that before we go to the break. But Miss D sings. She made her debut to the world with her song 2020 in July of 2020. And she immediately hit the stage performing her single through Northern California. After 2020 made it to the radio, she was soon labeled the official voice of the Black Lives Matter movement Sacramento. The 22-year-old independent artist has received recognition from the mothers of Breonna Taylor and Stephon Clark, India Ari, Jennifer Hudson, Angela Davis, and the mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, along with a host of radio personnel and encouragement. Her latest single,
Be Weird.
Be Weird, and it's spelled B-E-Y, weird, captures her lifestyle and her mantra, prioritizing her faith, pursuing her college degree, and protecting her peace. There you go. These things is well on her way to billboards and big screens. And if you guys have an opportunity, look her up on YouTube. The song brought my heart to tears. And I can truly understand why she would be labeled the Black Lives Matter Sacramento movement. That it's like an anthem. Yes. You when you hear it, yes, it's an anthem. And you are not human if that song does not impact you. And so I'm happy that she is our guest today as we have this heavy discussion. As we have this heavy topic, I am honored that she is a part of the voices that you're going to hear from today. My second guest, wow. Y'all know her. Y'all probably know her. If you don't, you are about to know her. It all started at age 7. And this sounds just so much like me. When she refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance because she didn't see liberty and justice for all, especially for those who looked like her, her family, and her community. Earning degrees in history and psychology, a master's in education, and teaching for nearly 20 years were all foundational to the vision of Ascribe Education and Consulting, LLC, and Edify Humanity, a 501c3. From age 7 to now, at the center of her motivation is humanity and belonging. She's on a mission to rectify the harms and oppressions of racism. And she is unflinching in asking the tough questions, facing uncomfortable truths, and building on equity-driven outcomes, acknowledging that we all have perpetuated norms based on conditionings from a white supremacy lens has divided our collective ability to stand in solidarity rather than compete in oppression Olympics. And in building a future that is anti-racist, humanity must matter, and equity needs to be at the center of that equation. There's no better time than the present to fight for those most marginalized and disenfranchised by a system with the intent to deny access to wealth, life, liberty, and justice. Get ready for a conversation with Miss Sonia Lewis. a mother, wife, influencer, entrepreneur, and all around unapologetic yet authentic Black magical force to be reckoned with. I feel like I should have said, get ready to rumble. Brace yourself for a true heart-to-heart change. Miss Sonia Lewis.
Thank you.
Wow. So I'm just excited to have this conversation. I'm very passionate about what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I feel like we might end up needing a part 2. I'm just going to already put that out there because we are about to talk about some things that are in the headlines today. And from your perspectives, we're just going to unpackage that. And we're going to allow the audience to hear, the truth.
Absolutely.
And there are people out there, white people, Black people, who we all have our biases, and they are ready to change. They're ready to let their guards down and say, hey, these things are happening. We acknowledge them. What can we do about it? Just starting with the question of your backgrounds. Let's start with Miss D. Sings. With your background and you being a college student, are you feeling a force moving forward? Are you feeling stifled when it comes to equity and normalizing equity? What is your experience in general?
I go to a PWI, so that's a predominantly white institution. And so my experience on campus being one of the 3% of Black students there, I'm from Oak Park, California, so I grew up around Black people. I went to Sacramento High School, grew up around Black people. So then being thrown into this environment, it was definitely a culture shock. And so immediately I did what I knew. I found the Black people.
Yeah.
And then I was blessed to be around, to mesh with the faculty and staff. So the Black faculty and staff where I go. And so I was able to not only find my way, but also learn from them and how they got into positions of power. And I was inspired to advocate for students like me, because let's say I always knew better. I didn't always do what was best.
Okay,
and so
you are not alone.
Honest.
I got to be real. So I was inspired by how they earn for their positions. And so seeing that, I'm recognizing from being from Oak Park, okay, that's what you call hustling, but in a in corporate world.
Yes.
So it's still hustling to me. I know it when I see it. And so learning from them, I now wanted to be the bridge between students and the people that are already in positions of power, because not all the time we have those influences.
Now, you did something that I totally admire and am very proud of you. When you say you found your people, you did more than find your people. You put together an organization that helps people find their people. Talk about that.
So Women in Sisterhood, that's a student-led organization. We have a full panel of Black women as the e-board. And this organization was started up, the year after COVID and distant learning. And so before that, the Black population was pretty close knit. After we have second years and third years who are on campus and are like, why would I stay? Why wouldn't I drop out? And then I was informed of the retention rates at the CSU and CSU's period. And I want to see people win. Like, right. I understand how it can be hard and people can want to drop out.
Yeah.
But I also
so the
know how
hopelessness and
is.
Potential of other students talking about dropping out inspired you to
get involved. There's reason to stay aside from the degree, the personal development that happens in college, the character development, unlearning and learning new things. I thought that was important.
You talked about, because I asked you, how do you all meet? What do those gatherings look like post-COVID or not that we're out of COVID, but after COVID happened, what do those gatherings look like? And then before COVID happened, what did those gatherings look like? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It went from, being online check-ins, group me, or positive affirmations, just checking in, wanting to make sure people are still there, keep an open line of communication, and also allowing vulnerability in the group chat. So as an e-board, we encourage one another to, be a little vulnerable, say a little bit more about what's going on, other than I'm good, homework is hard,
Yeah.
And then after COVID, now I would say this is our real first semester with about 90% of the students back on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the only organization on campus for Black women, I would say it's a good pressure of how are we going to get these second and third years to trust that we have their best interests, because it's not like they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Some freshmen come in, it's like their third years, they're like,
why? Been there, done that.
Who are
yeah.
you,
right,
and why? And so we're trying to strategically plan that out.
And what are the numbers of the group? What's the participation like?
The participation is good. We have regular people that'll check in or hit our emails up. I also work as a peer mentor for Black students, men and women. So the numbers are good. As far as the overall population, we're still trying to figure out how many people are on campus and how many aren't, because the numbers are fluctuating with people, with cases.
Yeah.
But our overall participation is great. We have about 40 active members, and we communicate with them regularly. And now we're getting to where we can plan in-person events, skate night coming up, and workshop on fluency and love languages coming up.
Oh, nice.
Boundaries.
That's cool.
Yeah. Look, how old do you have? I guess you got to be college.
How you got to be college?
But I like that, because those 40, even if you have an event, those 40 know somebody.
Right.
And so you get more people involved. And we talked about that a little bit. And so I really like your humility and your drive, your intention, because that's going to keep that group and keep them growing. And you may not see that, you may or may not see that, but it's your determination to keep them there for that purpose that continues to influence and inspire the rest of that participation. So I'm very proud of you.
I appreciate that.
I really am. I was like, oh my good, to know that that's going on and that our young people are spearheading that. So I'm delighted. Oh my goodness. Miss Sonia, how about you? What are you seeing today?
I let the youth lead in these kind of conversations, because it's super important that we take a step back. We sometimes present and engage based on a jaded, dirty lens, so to speak, because we've experienced some things in life. And so it makes us mad, it makes us upset, or it makes us disconnect. And young people have that unfiltered, that just drive to say, that's wrong. I recognize that it's wrong. And who's going to help me have agency within self to amplify my voice?
Yeah.
And so that's part of what I see is happening, especially after the public murder of George Floyd. I've been on the streets of Sacramento, grassroots organizing for, 2 or 3 decades now, right? And so this time around, it was such a different feeling. And so that feeling was so
Tell us about that, because I feel that, but I can't put it into words.
Yeah, so there are old heads like myself, and I consider myself an old head, who we had conversations, and we were like, so people were in my ear like, Sonia, you can't be out on the streets this time. And there's a target on your back that's going to be very different if you're out there in the public view from law enforcement. We know that there are legitimate threats being out there in that kind of environment. And I had to really have, a talk with Jesus and be like, they telling me not to be on the streets and not go protest. And the reality was there were so many young people who could fill up for blocks, right? That I didn't need to. And their voices were so beautiful, because they saw the things that we've been screaming and hollering and laying our lives on the line for years. And now it's their turn. And I'm one of those kind of people. I don't have a problem passing the baton.
Yeah.
And so my DMs were filled with young people like, okay, what should we do in this situation? And so it was refreshing to do back end work and do intel. I was tasked with watching the protests from 2 and 3 monitors on 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and coordinating rides for folks who were stranded, making sure that there was aid and food out and water out there on the streets when the protests were happening. So there was a huge shift. And so that's allowed me to allow my older children who are between the ages of 27 and 21 to, go out there and lead that kind of movement and meet and being involved with people like Dee, because that's where change happens. You think about every social movement in this country and even around the world for that matter. Yeah. It has been led by young people. Yeah. Soweto, led by young people. The Black Panther Party was young people. The Civil Rights Movement, young people. Yeah. All of these movements were led by young people. And so that's where the change is going to happen. They are going to be our future voters, our future taxpayer, our future homeowners. We need to prepare for them.
You said something so beautiful, passing the torch, not being afraid to pass the torch. And that the young people, they come in with this renewed freshness and almost innocence in a way that they haven't been tainted, where they're going in biased about the situation, right? So there are 3 things going on that I'm hoping we get a chance to talk about today. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive into the Supreme Court justice situation as it pertains to some statements made by Senator Ted Cruz and him speaking for Black women. We're going to jump into Mr. Joe Rogan and Miss India Ari, who has stepped in and decided that she too is pulling back from Spotify and her music in these online services until something is done about Joe Rogan. And we are going to talk about the NFL lawsuit against them by the coach who got a text that he shouldn't have got. But the cell phone, once again, is in the spotlight for Black people, saving lives. And we're going to take a break. But before we take a break, which song do we have queued up?
You didn't really give me a title, so I'll just put 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's roll our bets.
Yeah. So you're going.
Both in there, though.
Okay. So the song that you are about to hear is from Miss D Sings. And when we come back from the break, we'll let her give a narrative about it. But you're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I'm Agent Key, and we'll be right back.
You know what? It's playing, but it ain't saying nothing. I downloaded it straight from where you sent it.
Is it playing through the radio?
There it is.
Happened to be 2010.
Was it playing the whole time?
It's playing again.
What are they going to hear?
It actually was playing the whole time.
Okay, I'm just going to say, don't play with me.
It was muted to us.
Can you turn it up a little bit in here?
We can turn it up.
This one.
So we can't breathe, we can't breathe, we can't breathe. We can't breathe, we can't breathe, we can't breathe.
I might have to look at the people
You can
before me.
feel the passion
Figure
when you
out.
speak.
Sometimes they turn on.
Oh, thank you, baby.
You can feel the passion when you speak.
Mad at the Black Lives Matter movement because it's moving. Will no longer live translucent hitters. They are not moving for 100 years oppression. And they hate it that
Hey, Bart.
Our hair, our nose, our lips, our skin,
Boundaries and love. I gotta put on my glasses. Boundaries and love language. Yes. Hey, y'all watching. Can y'all hear this music? Can you turn up a little bit more in? That was like when you started saying all the names, I was like,
I'll just go for a drive.
my cheeks filled up with tears.
Wow.
What if I miss the stop sign? Central plan.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just walk to the store. Mike Brown. For snacks and nothing more. Trayvon Martin. I'll jog so
The song y'all hear, that's the artist right there, y'all. Miss D Sings.
I got a cell phone if it looks suspicious. Stephon Clark. Okay, I'll just run home so I won't be out alone. No running, Walter Scott. And I'll get strapped to carry my own. Philando Castile. I got a question now, cause this just sounds wrong. No question asking Randy Evans.
I have to pay to go to your pants.
Rihanna Taylor. It's our children.
Ladies, let's make sure we're living true to our own hearts.
Woo! So y'all gotta go check her out. YouTube,
YouTube, Spotify,
for
Tidal,
now,
right?
Spotify.
Apple Music, everything, all streaming platforms.
This D Sings. I'll tag this post when the show is done with the links and how to reach her and how to hear more of her music, y'all. If y'all are out there watching, say something in the chat. Let us know you're out there. Bart said, boundaries and love languages preach. That's that class that y'all gonna have.
Yes, ma'am. In the month of February.
In the month of February. So I guess there is an age limitation. You gotta be a
You
student.
can always come down and be a guest. Woo,
I might have to just sit in on the class just so I can form another show to have for older folks.
We would love to. Any and every time.
We need some more of that. Somebody's lunch smells good. Oh my God.
Ready?
Yeah. Hey everyone, we are back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are talking about normalizing equity. And my guest today, Miss D Sings, independent artist, and you just heard her song
2020.
Yeah.
That was the one that just I was saying during the break, my cheeks filled with tears when you started saying the names. Tell us give us some history, background behind that song.
That song was made after the murder of George Floyd, and I'm sure we all know how that felt.
Yeah.
We all felt that. And I stay in a predominant white town at a predominant white institution, and I was speaking to one of my mentors, and I was just telling her, she's another Black woman. I said, I'm heavy. And she was like, well, you know what works for you? Art. And I was like, no, this is different. I can't art this one out. Yeah. This is not, I'm not putting a paintbrush on the canvas.
The wrong kind of art.
This is not that. I tried to paint it out. I'm heavy. And she was like, art. And so I was like, okay. I went to the studio, and I only had my journal, like my notes. I didn't have a song made. And so the producer was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I was told to come here and art. So I don't know. He was like, okay, well, do you have a beat? No, but you got a piano? Can you just, he was like, I don't play piano. What you mean? And I was like, keep that. That's why the beat is kind of monotone. I was like, just keep
and
that.
It worked.
And I read from my notes, and it wasn't put together like a song. So I was just like, wait, just let me just, if this goes before that. And then I read the names, and he's like, he's giving me a look like, oh, you're wasting my time. But and so I'm sitting there, and so I'm like, okay, you can just put that on repeat, and really you can like understand if you have to go eat lunch or like. And so I'm just in there, and I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And from memory and from trying to organize it from my notes, I just sang it all the way through. And he was like, and I was also invited to a Juneteenth festival. He was like, you should do that like now. At that festival. And I was like, this ain't ready. These are notes. This is not this is just notes. And he was like, just try it.
Yeah.
And the turnout was, I'm still surprised that people can feel the way that I felt when I wrote that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's how some of the most brilliant, long-lasting songs are written.
Yeah.
Just, not necessarily on the fly, but in the moment.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. My other guest today, y'all, Miss Sonia Lewis, and she's with Ascribe. She's the CEO of Ascribe Success, and her presence being here today during this conversation, this is what she does, y'all. This is what she does. And actually, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about specifically what it is that your organization does, because there are managers, bosses, people listening right now who need what you have at such a time as this.
It's so interesting, Key, that how even Ascribe came to be. Like, I spent 17 and a half years in the classroom teaching history. I knew in having a conversation with Jesus, going into teaching, being so young, right out of college, that I wouldn't retire a teacher. So I knew this. And I was almost saying, God, you ain't got my back. You ain't got my back. I'm not quitting. You ain't, I was almost daring her to like make me quit. Like, okay. And so my last teaching assignment was with Sac City Unified. And I discovered, I was a program coordinator. I discovered that the funds that I was responsible for, signing my name on the dotted line, and I'm a literal person, so I want to make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's. And you're not coming for me, because they'll come for us quicker than they'll come for anybody else. They'll give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. And so I discovered that there was money missing from my program. And I went to my boss, the principal, and I said, hey, can you help me out with this? And he was like, oh, no problem, just sign. I was like, no. That's not how my integrity is not going to be compromised, because I don't know what this is.
Right.
And so he gave me the runaround. He eventually admitted that he had used funds from my program for another program, which was like not supposed to ever happen.
Wow.
And I refused to sign on the dotted line. And I said, you sign it then. You okay with those funds being spent that way? You sign it. And so his response to me when school ended that year, after the last gathering of all staff, he said, the district can't fire you, but I can say that you're not welcome back here at this school. Yes.
That was the kick you needed.
That was the kick I needed.
Yeah.
Right.
Glass half full.
Absolutely. All the things. I knew that I was prepared. I just didn't know what I was prepared for. It did lead me on a journey of actually being diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was going to fight. I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
And so I fought to tooth and nail. Like, y'all not going to, give me no penny ante job. You're going to give me something that's equivalent to what I was doing. And they couldn't, because there were no literal positions that were available. And so I got a call one day and said, can you report to this school? I said, nope. And so I legitimately have the right to do so. And they paid me. They had to pay me for even saying no. And so I ended up being paid for 3 additional years in a severance package.
Look at God.
I took that money and I stacked it. And I said, what am I going to do? And I had a friend who was like, Sonia, you are not yourself. I'm going to take you out for breakfast on your birthday. And this was 2009. We ended up at Stagecoach on Florin Road, sitting there for like 4 hours, writing on napkins. Okay, here's the business. Here's the business plan. This is what we're going to do. Parents still calling you? Yeah, parents still calling. But I don't want to get out the bed tomorrow, because depression and anxiety is a real thing. And I think one thing that Black women don't we take for granted ourselves and our health and especially our mental health.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time that I was like faced with a dilemma. Okay, that bed is so comfortable and I'm allowing depression to just keep me there. Right. And she was like, nope, we got appointments next week, because I'm
heard that, friend.
So shout out to Shonda Davis. She was my business partner
Shonda.
when we started. A couple of years later, it became Just I. And we literally were doing the things that parents were asking us to do when we were educators. And so it was a matter of initially helping high school students transition from high school to the real world. So if that was college acceptance letters and scholarships or career, preparedness, we wanted to make sure, especially our students who got not the resources, right, that they had resources to make that happen. And it has just, transitioned over the past 13 years. And I would say that about 7 years ago, I was noticing this trend, this shift where administrators would call me in and be like, can you just do a check of my campus? And so I was like, okay, this seems like climate and culture. You want me to come in and do consulting and see where I see some cracks and give you okay, I'm a master. I got a master's in education. I can write a program up in like this in my sleep.
Yeah.
And so that's what I began to do, write up programs. How can I service you? And then I would pitch that. I have never had to market in 13 years. All of my clients come by word of mouth. So I'm already vetted. When George Floyd happened, I was able to have very unapologetic conversations. In those moments where someone will call me in and say, hey, can you come and do a culture and climate check with me? Yes. And then as I'm in those rooms, I can mention racism. I can mention the disparities. I can talk about the gaps, right? But I couldn't lead with it.
Right.
Today, I can lead with, I am coming in as your anti-racism impact strategist.
Do you think that's a result of George Floyd?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just I think bringing everything, the realness of what we saw on the screen.
Yes.
You can't unsee it.
Yes.
And you do feel like that's the reason that we're having these real discussions now.
Yeah. I mean, corporate America put their foot in their mouth a little too early when they say, we're going to put all this money towards equity work. So now we're going to hold you to the fire because you said you're going to do this. And so now I can pitch, this is what you say that you want to do. Here's where the misalignment is. Let's help you get in alignment. If you say that you want to have an anti-racist work and learning environment for your people and the people that you serve in the community that is seeing you, right?
Yeah.
This is what you need to make that happen.
And your clients are not just here in Sacramento.
No. Yeah. I mean, nationwide, we are looking to even expand internationally. That's been on my vision board for, the past year. Going into this year, we know that it will, come. It's just a matter, like I said, and for those who are listening, just to get an example, school districts I work with. I work with individual schools and charter schools, but I work with nonprofit. I work with corporate organizations. Every organization, I don't care what industry you're in, you need an equity expert. It don't have to be me, but you need someone to come in with fresh eyes and give the people in the room who are the most marginalized and vulnerable within your organization power to speak.
So these organizations, I'm thinking of the NFL and the lawsuit and an organization like the NFL, where the stats are 50%, a little more than 50% of all of the players on all of the teams are Black.
Yeah.
Guess how many head coaches there are in the NFL? Black coaches.
It used to be a couple.
And now there is one.
Is it one? Okay.
Just one. Guess how many Black owners there are of the teams in the NFL? There might be one.
Right.
Maybe.
A part owner.
Yeah, a part owner, not full owner, but even part owner is some success.
Yeah.
But the reason for bringing this up is here you have this major organization whose success is off the backs of Black men now in the headlines. And it's just going to be interesting to me to see how this turns out. I want to read the story in case some of you are not aware. I want to make sure that I'm filling y'all in, because that's what we do here. We fill you in. So, former Dolphins coach Brian Flores cited texts from Patriots coach Bill Belichick in a class action complaint filed against the NFL on Tuesday. Flores, who was on the Patriots staff from 2004 to 2018, included screenshots of texts from Belichick in which Belichick congratulated him on landing the Giants job, even though Flores was yet to interview. Flores said, "Did you hear something that I didn't hear?" Belichick wrote that he had heard from both the Bills and the Giants that Flores was, quote unquote, their guy. And Belichick wrote back, "Hope it works out if you want it to." Now, remember, this is a wrong text message conversation happening. Flores thanked Belichick and said he certainly wanted the job before checking to make sure Belichick was talking to the right person. After a 2-hour gap, Belichick answered, "Sorry, I bleeped this up." Belichick text, "I double checked and I misread the text. I think they are naming Daboll. How do you pronounce that? Daboll. I'm sorry about that." And then Flores thanked Belichick. The most telling part about the lawsuit is that Bill Belichick apparently telling Brian Flores mistakenly the Giants have agreed to hire Brian Daboll before Brian Flores even had his interview. Black coaches complain all the time about sham interviews for what's known as the Rooney Rule. Mr. Flores had to give an extensive interview for a job he already knew he would not get. An interview that was held for no reason other than for the Giants to demonstrate falsely to the league commissioner,
Right.
Roger Goodell, and the public at large that it was in compliance with the Rooney Rule.
Mm.
And the reason I bring this up, we can just assume what the Rooney Rule is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as the Fair Housing Rights Act, where you can't discriminate. You can't.
Right,
It's
right.
the same as what we said earlier, affirmative action,
action.
where these laws are put in place or these rules are put in place just so that corporations can say that they've checked the box.
Yeah.
But there is not necessarily any change occurring. And so the Rooney Rule was supposedly put in place to ensure that minority coaches, especially African Americans, were offered high-level coaching positions. Dungy, who we all know and love, struggled for years before landing a head coaching job. He was often promoted to head coaching candidate by Chuck Noll when Dungy was an assistant under Noll in the 80s with the Steelers, but would not become head coach until 96 when he took over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so since the Rooney Rule was established, several NFL teams have hired African-American coaches, including the Steelers, who hired Mike Tomlin before his 2007 season. At the beginning of the 2006 season, the total percentage of African-American coaches increased to 22% from 6% before the Rooney Rule. But despite this, the effectiveness of the rule remains a matter of debate. And if we look at these percentages, when they use percentages, it makes it seem like, oh, that's big.
That's high.
But all you got to do is take one person and do it twice, and now you got a 50% increase.
Right.
So be careful when you're listening to the stats. If we're talking about a situation where there was very minimal amount, and then the numbers, the percentages make it look like it's more. But let's talk about that. We have rules in place.
Yeah.
So there is no racism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes back to culture and climate. We can say that policy is what it is on paper, black and white, all day long, but the culture and climate is run by the people who are in those positions of power. And so you have people who have been leading the NFL as an organization that has said, we are only doing this for show. We are doing this to check boxes. And that's where organizations are, like I said, large or small, run into trouble, because they do things behind the scene that are not inclusive, that don't perpetuate diversity, that are definitely not equitable to the little man on the totem pole. And so the NFL is going to be hit again. You know, it's one of those things. I can remember when Kaepernick took a knee. I have not, and I just will admit that I haven't followed NFL since Kaepernick took a knee. I am a huge 49er fan. My family grew up watching the Niners. But I was like, I just can't do it. But I was, this past weekend, I was like,
yes, you was on the edge of your seat like me. Yes.
Did they win? Just text me. I don't even want to.
You don't want to watch.
Right?
I just want to know.
But that's where organizational leaders have to be courageous, right? You don't need to know everything about what racism is or what it means to be anti-racist. Mm-hmm. What you need to be is willing to learn with your people, because Black women like us, we see BS walking. Yeah. We know when it's fake when it comes through the door. We know if it's just to check the box. Mm-hmm. And so we will lean in when we see authentic efforts towards making sure that we're all included in those conversations. So NFL got lots of work to do. I don't care what your halftime show and who you're bringing on and all those kind of things to make it look good.
Because at the end of the day, so here's a question. And I know that you haven't really looked at all the details about this situation with the NFL, and you can't really make a true assessment. But what are some of the things that the NFL needs to look at if they want to make real change in this area? Because you hit the nail on the head when you talk about those who are in positions of leadership, because it's the leaders at the end of the day who get to make the decisions. What types of things should leadership really be doing to make real change? Yeah,
it starts with an internal mindset shift. Like, it is no longer about my position pays me X amount of dollars and I'm the only one who makes the decisions. It needs to be inclusive. It needs to it needs to inquire about all of the groups who are marginalized. I oftentimes do, when I'm working with organizations, what I call affinity grouping. And so that means it might seem to some people, it might be offensive to some people, but I want to group you by your weight, your racial ethnic background, right? Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes we feel more comfortable, like a group of Black women at a Chico State who say, we gonna be the only ones that understand what we going through, right? And so I have those conversations. I then have a conversation with those who are under the umbrella of the LGBTQ plus community. I then have a conversation with those who are women within the organization. So we're breaking folks down, because when they look around the room, they say, oh, you experiencing that too? Oh yeah, me too. Remember the time? That's when you get authentic feedback that you can then present. The data don't lie. Right. And so when the data doesn't lie and an organizational leader is really wanting to impact change for all of their people, because we don't have to go in and give names. I never have to name names. The data doesn't lie. This happens, and this is happening on your watch. And oftentimes that's enough motivation for them to say, ooh, we got to make some changes. Ooh, we can potentially be sued like the NFL is being sued. Right. And so they want to not be in those predicaments. And so they say, Sonia, how can you help us? And that organizational leader training and coaching that I do is really in depth. A lot of leaders and coaches, people who are in those positions of power, they are not ready for that rude awakening, right? Yeah. And so it's a reality check, and it's tough and it takes time. But I also tell organizations that it won't happen overnight. Right. Most of my contracts are 1 to 5 years, so there's some commitment, Right. And you gotta also, pay folks what they worth. Yes. Pay people for this work, because it's not easy work. Right. Dropping a nugget like I dropped on my Facebook page just 2 weeks ago for Dr. King's birthday. I said, truth be known, Dr. King was a critical race theorist. All day, every day, all he did was fight to change law for Black people and bring equity to those who are less marginalized. That's a critical race theorist. Now y'all want to be mad, and now y'all want to tote him as the perfect savior,
the ideology of racism. Right. This is how you should fight. You should look like Martin Luther King.
You should be in a suit, and you should be so poised, and you should not speak this way. Yeah. Don't let your rage come out, right?
Do the real research. Do the history right
he
before
was public enemy number one. Yes. Let's be truthful. He was arrested more than 30 times. Let's be truthful. He was not liked by the American public. And the media was used at that time. The media used him as like this puppet to even get Black people not to like him. Right. Yeah. That's the truth of the matter. Right. And that's not the story that the white lens narrates to us today. Right. That's not what the history book says. Right. Same with Rosa Parks. Don't nobody mention, Claudette Claudette, oh my God, I'm missing her last name, who was a darker skinned teenage mom who sat on the bus first. Before Rosa. But she didn't fit the image.
Yeah, Rosa did. To put that. And so we got to take a break, but my goodness. Okay. See, this, I already said we might need a part 2. There's so much to unpackage here. And these are the real conversations and solutions that need to take place. Before we take a break, I want you to lead us into this next song. Since we knew what number 1 is, now we know what number 2 is going to be.
Yes, Be Weird is my latest release. The B and the Y and the E are capitalized because the abbreviation is BI. It's all about protecting your peace and eliminating who doesn't fit that standard. So Be Weird.
Yes.
Turn it up in the house, because we want everybody to hear. Hey, y'all. Hi, Kelly. Hey, Kelly Kells. It's Tisha. Coven. Is that the last name?
Claudette Coven.
Thank you, Tisha. Oh, she got straight India. I read that.
Right?
I'm letting people place themselves where they want to be. Be weird if you want to. Be weird if you want.
That is good. Oh my gosh.
Right? I like this.
I do too. This is music you can bump in your car while you're driving down the freeway to top off summer.
Oof.
And then just kind of
Right?
in your own,
Right?
when you're feeling that time when you're feeling like don't nobody understand you, but you just moving toward in who you are, right? Y'all like this? Y'all like this?
Okay, y'all.
Comment on the music. Can y'all hear the song? Can y'all hear this?
Can you give us some of this?
Oh, hey.
So today makes the day that all 3 of my singles have been played on the radio. And today is 222. And I've been seeing this number everywhere. So I took a picture of it. I took a picture of it.
That is weird.
Yes.
Look, that's
There we
so
go.
weird.
Mhm.
Be weird.
Be weird.
I love that. I love that. Okay, all right. We gotta go. We gotta pay the bill.
Pay the bill,
Okay.
Angie must didn't get my text. Can y'all? They can't even see. I guess since this half of me is not showing, I should put the earring on this side. Look, I'm about to lose the other. Y'all, I lost the back to my earring. So
like this trait,
for the rest of the show.
I know, we aren't mind readers, but shh, don't tell our
See, it
men or
looks
our
like
kids that.
I can't lean in.
Ladies
It'll
have a
really show.
unique
Okay,
ability to
so
read people to
we
the
got.
degree of being able to know what's
We're gonna have like 6
necessary
minutes when we
at
come
any
back.
time.
Right on here.
Cultivate this skill through empathy. Simply walking in the other
It's always
person's
be
shoes.
weird in
Another
2020.
easy way to make
Yes,
centered. Lady leaders know
Asking you
what
for
others
a reason.
need. We're online today's
So whatever.
And I'm going to write it for these. Oh,
Whatever
for
name she
that.
goes, whatever name she goes by, put it on that piece of paper.
Why? I need to be weird with a Y. Oh my goodness, I gotta take myself out.
2, 1.
Hey everyone, we're back. You are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Keith. We are selling Sacramento. I'm here with Miss Sonia Lewis of Ascribe Success Consulting and Miss D Sings, and that's D.C. INGS. D.C. INGS. And she is an independent artist. If you've been listening to the entire show today, you have heard 2 of her releases. The first one, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Google her. The second one, Be Weird, B-E-Y, Weird. And that one you heard just as we went to break. That was a nice, calm kickback, Sunday drive, right before the sun set down. And the lyrics that I love, the reason I love the lyrics in the song and the concept is because when you know that you've been called to do something that doesn't look like what everybody else is doing.
Say that.
Sometimes it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you will hear haters and naysayers say and do things towards you to try to stop you or halt you or discourage you. And sometimes you just need to pump yourself up and encourage yourself in the walk that you're on the path that God has for you, because down it, can't nobody tell you what God has called you to do, because he didn't call them. He called you. He placed that idea, that concept, that whatever is pulling that passion in your heart. And so Be Weird. Another anthem. I'm gonna just call it another anthem.
Absolutely.
It's a mental health anthem.
I'm gonna just be selfish in this moment because I need D. So my book, Monsters and Aliens, is coming out, right? And as a kid, I used to say, "Mama, I'm just an alien. I'm just different. I just,
the timing of it,
right? The timing of it all." And so hearing this song, it's like, oh my gosh, if that ain't a marriage made in heaven,
confirmation,
right? And so.
Say what you're going to say, because I can hear what I know what she's about to say, y'all. Say it.
It's just one of those things when we don't trust the voices of young people, right? We have led in this country with this old, ugly adage. I say it's ugly because let children be seen and prim and proper, but you can't be heard. Shh. You know, how many times have grandma and auntie and them said, shh, you don't know better, go on over there and hush. Grown folks is talking, right? And we've been raised in that way, right? But so we get scared of saying that Uncle such and such was touching us. We get afraid of going to school and, you know, there's a bully on the block.
Right.
We get afraid to, you know, let our wings of the butterfly that we can potentially be expand to its greatest capacity.
Yeah.
Because somebody in the background is saying, you can't do that. I have family members who live in San Francisco who have never crossed the Bay Bridge because they are afraid to leave that circumference of the comfort of
misconception of what they think is protection and safety.
Right. And so those are the notions that I think that if young people were able to trust and their voices were magnified, it would be okay to be weird. It would okay to walk in your skin, no matter what you look like, how tall, how short. I don't care what the exterior looks like. Be your authentic self.
You got to talk to us though about Monsters and Aliens.
Yeah, this is my new little baby right now. It's growing pains. The delivery is like right there. Monsters and Aliens is my ode to self. Like at 7 years old, I decided that I wasn't going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And literally it was like, ain't no liberty and justice for people who look like us. And I saw it at 7 years old. My family used to say, she's an old soul. And, you know, those kind of, you know how we are in the Black community and other communities. I'm sure you have those cultural norms as well. But I was like, this is not liberty and justice. Based on what you're telling me the definition is, and this is not what I'm seeing. And so I got into a lot of trouble. And so I've been asked, like, for the past 30 years, Sonia, write this story. And so Monsters and Aliens, just to give you an idea of the title, is my way of saying that there are people in the world who are intentionally going to destroy others because of their selfishness, right? And aliens just come along because they're different and they see the world and people for who they are and try to impact change. And so because I've always considered myself an alien, I just felt that it was apropos to call the book Monsters and Aliens. This is number 1 of a series of 5. You know, 13-year-old Sonia will, her story, her voice will be lifted. She was a cute little thing back in Oakland back in the day. But 7-year-old Sonia is that voice that I always listen to. I always say, well, how would this impact 7-year-old Sonia? What would she say? Because she was wise beyond her years as far as my parents. Let my parents tell it.
You're having a book signing, you're talk about that whole event.
So my birthday is book launch, right? So my birthday is February 13th, and this year I am competing with the Super Bowl, and I don't care because I believe that I am that grand, I am that super. But I started a scribe on my birthday in 2009. I started my nonprofit Edify in 2013, also on my birthday. So my mom and I, we were sitting. She's on my team, and we were like, the book has to come out on your birthday. Now, mind you, this is November. And I was like, well, that only give us a little bit of time to plan this thing. What we going to do? And so we were like, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to show up. What's the vision? And the vision is womanity. The vision is what would women and children, you know, that old African proverb that says you teach a man something, you've taught a man something. You teach a woman something, you've taught a village. And so I really believe that women are that sacred portal. I believe that Mother Africa is Mother Africa for a reason. I believe Mother Earth is, you know, all of these things that lead to the divine, that who we are. And so I have women authors. We're going to talk about why they birthed their books. I have poets and songsters, and I'm hoping that Dee can come out and bless us on that day. But it's in no pressure. But I'm just saying, I'm putting my love. Hey. But it's just an opportunity for us to get together and remember from where we came from. It will be at the Rose Family Creative Empowerment Center in the community of South Sacramento, Meadowview, where when I came to Sacramento from Oakland back in 1985, that's where we landed. So that is appropriate, you know, location-wise.
And what day is it on again?
It is on Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday?
Super Bowl Sunday.
So, you know, I already signed up that I'm going to be there, and I have no reason to not be there because my team may go to the, so I'm going to be there. So I'm excited about the show today. I'm looking at the time because I'm trying to not we are at time. We didn't get to talk about the other two issues of the day, but if y'all are listening, I recommend that you Google them and check them out, because they're imperative to the times that we're living in right now. They're imperative to this being Black History Month, and that is the topic of the U.S. Supreme Court Justice nominee, and specifically Ted Cruz's comments of him speaking for Black women, calling Biden's statement of picking a Black woman as the U.S. Supreme Court Justice nominee insulting. Yeah. He said he's, on behalf of Black women, for him to say he was going to pick a Black woman, that's insulting. I would say that I'm going to speak for the three Black women here and say that that's not the part that's insulting. No. Get her in there and make her somebody that we all agree with, and you good. We've got elections coming up. My election can be bought if you are going to be voting for the things that impact my life. Absolutely. So can we just put that out there? The other issue was Spotify and Joe Rogan. Look that up, because a lot of us listen to these our music through Spotify and Apple and all those other things. There are individuals on these platforms spouting racism and hate and things that go against what we believe in, things that keep us going and empower us. And we are some of the main suppliers of income to these businesses. If you take Black dollars away from a lot of what has got America going, America will break down. So we need to recognize the power that we hold in our pockets as a people. Thank you, Ms. Sonia Lewis. Thank you, Ms. D. Sings, for your presence on the show today. And remember, y'all, if you are doing what you were created to do, I will see you at the top. Hey, you guys. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Thank you for watching. Yes. Tish said, I like it. Keisha, you still cute. Thank you, without my earring. Thank you. Hey, you guys, thank you for watching. And I'm going to put Dee's information in here. I'm going to put Sonia's book information in here because it's available for order, right?
It's available for order.
It's available for ordering. And the invitation to the book launch, can we put that in there?
Yep, we can put that in there.
I'm going to put the invitation to the book launch. So if y'all want to join us, that's where I'm going to be on Super Bowl Sunday, y'all. So, and Miss D too, no pressure.
I'm coming. I would love to come.
Okay, you guys, we got to go, y'all. I got some sushi waiting for me at the house this time. No tacos, sushi now.